The 49ers are buying the Seahawks. Well, not completely, but kind of. That is only the first piece of unexpected news that we have today. Second piece is that the 49ers are on track to be almost fully healthy for the start of training camp. Yes, training camp week for reporting is officially here because the rookies have to report by July 18th, which is Saturday. Now, here's one piece of news that I did expect, and it would be that Upton Stout would be working his ass off because this is what Upton Stout is made of. He looks absolutely shredded. And, speaking of rookies, he was a rookie just last season. Now he's got a good season under his belt and he's working out hard. Nice sunset in the background with the 49ers helmet. This video credit to Jacory _ one way. Put up the video of Upton Stout working out for San Francisco. So ahead of the training camp report date on Saturday, a lot of great news for the 49ers. George Kittle definitely ahead of schedule. Now, I know that he doesn't have to report until the week after, and he'll finish up his rehab in the 49ers building. But the last time that we checked in with George Kittle, we did confirm that he was ahead of schedule and looking like he could be back for week one when the 49ers visit Australia to play the Rams. Now, Kyle Juszczyk this weekend at the American Century Golf Tournament in Lake Tahoe said that the original timetable for George Kittle was a return in November. So, I think that's totally off the table at this point. I think that we'll definitely see George Kittle before November. But I still remember Achilles, early January, bottle of tequila sent down to the 49ers locker room in Philadelphia. We all said, well, this is really tough because if you're going to tear your Achilles, might as well do it earlier in the year, right? So you have a chance for the next season. We all said that Kittle probably wouldn't be back in the first half of 2026. Well, now it looks like he'll be back for sure in the first half of 2026. The question is, does he get on that long 15-hour flight to Melbourne and play for the 49ers in week one against the Rams, who may have Aaron Donald, who's been spotted working out at the Rams facility? A lot of cryptic social media posts. Devontae Adams with the latest one, quote, posting Aaron Donald. 35-year-old Aaron Donald might be on the 49ers list of players to block come week one. That's going to be a star-studded game for the 49ers against the Rams in Australia. All right, so the big news over the course of the weekend came from a business perspective, and the 49ers can really benefit from this as well. Vinod Khosla, a minority owner of the 49ers, is going to be buying the Seattle Seahawks, a controlling share of the Seattle Seahawks, so at least 30% according to NFL rules. We don't know exactly how much of the Seahawks Khosla is going to buy, but it's at a $9.6 billion valuation. Of course, he's going to get other investors in on this project. This guy's worth, I think, $12 to $15 billion total. He founded Sun Microsystems. He lives in the Bay Area, and just about a year ago in 2025, Vinod Khosla, who's going to be the new owner of the Seahawks, bought 3.1% of the 49ers. He bought that 3.1% at a valuation of $8.5 billion for San Francisco. So let me just explain some quick math because the values of these franchises are skyrocketing. Of course, that can come back around and will come back around to benefit the 49ers. 3.1% of $8.5 billion is $263.5 million. So although we haven't seen the official number, we can surmise that Khosla bought his share, his 3.1% of the 49ers, which he's going to have to give up now to finalize this Seahawks purchase. He got it for $263.5 million. The Seahawks have now sold or will sell at the highest price ever for an NFL team, $9.6 billion. The Washington Commanders just a few years ago sold for in the range of $6 billion. The Los Angeles Lakers valued at $10 billion. If the Seattle Seahawks sell for $9.6 billion to Vinod Khosla, The 49ers almost certainly are worth at least $10 billion. So the 49ers, if they sold tomorrow, they're not going to sell tomorrow, but if they sold tomorrow, I would say that they would be the first team in the NFL to sell for $10 billion. Kosla, when he does sell he's going to be forced to sell his 3.1%. We'll see exactly what valuation he sells at, but I would surmise that it's going to be at least a valuation of $10 billion if the Seahawks sold for $9.6 billion. So 10% of 3.1 billion is 310 million. And he bought the 49ers 3.1% share at 263.5 million, or at least that's what we estimate. So that is a cool profit of about $46 million over the course of just about 1 year. That valuation that we'll see with the purchase of the 3.1% is going to set a new standard. And the 49ers, I think they wanted to sell about 10% of the team to raise money. And that happened over the course of 2025. They were able to sell 6% at the $8.5 billion valuation. Now we expect the valuation to be around $10 billion, maybe even more. That means that the investors are making a profit, which is what you want to see in this very capitalistic nature of the NFL. And the more money that is infused into the San Francisco 49ers, the more that they'll be able to spend and obviously continue working the salary cap. Now, the NFL might come down on some of these void years, which the rich teams like the 49ers are using in the next collective bargaining agreement. Roger Goodell has talked about salary cap integrity. But for the time being, and I'm going to have a big piece on this up on the San Francisco Standard, where we actually initially got into this last year when the sale of the 10% of the 49ers was happening. We could put it up right there. This is what I wrote. The 49ers are selling part of the team at a record valuation. What it means, well, now we can fast forward to the 49ers owning a part of the Seahawks, a controlling interest of the Seahawks, although that's just a joke. But the Seahawks fans are really, really freaking out about it because Vinod Kosla has been a 49ers fan for 3 decades. But trust me, I think that he'll be a fine owner for the Seahawks. I don't think that he's going to have some kind of conflict of interest. The NFL is going to make him sell his share of San Francisco. Well, of course, he wouldn't be able to own both teams at the same time simultaneously. And I think that Jed York is not planning on selling a controlling stake of the 49ers at any time soon. So when Vinod Kosla had a chance to buy from the state of Paul Allen up in Seattle, he decided to make that move. And now we'll see exactly how things are structured up in Seattle. From the health perspective of the 49ers, I want to get the roster up here because we are now fully in training camp mode with the rookies reporting on Saturday, July 18th. And I'm going to be happy to answer a lot of your questions about this 49ers roster and about how the 49ers are going to look at those first few practices of training camp. The first one's going to be on July 26th. But for now, we can set the table and talk about the good health news that they've been expecting. Now, Isaac Guerendo might be back. The torn pectoral muscle for Isaac Guerendo happened weightlifting earlier this offseason. So he's currently shaded there in pink as one of the 49ers who's injured. I have not shaded George Kittle in pink for the time being because I think I was talking about him as a foundational pillar, but we'll put that injury shade back on his name for the time being. Other than that, I think everybody on this offense is projected to be healthy. That includes Mac Jones, who was throwing a tight end just a couple weeks ago. Of course, he had some shoulder soreness during OTAs for San Francisco, so there was a little bit of a concern from the outside there. But Mac should be ready to go. Jacob Cowing should be ready to go. Jordan Watkins was here in the Nashville area last week working out with Brock Purdy and George Kittle. He should be good to go. The offensive linemen all look healthy for San Francisco. I will warn people that at some point over the course of the next week, expect the 49ers to start placing some players on the physically unable to perform list by rule. There might be players who come in after having dealt with an injury earlier this offseason. They might come in to do some rehab work before their official report date. And if that happens, the 49ers have to put them on the physically unable to perform list to begin training camp. They can take them off at any point. So, for example, last offseason, Ricky Pearsall was dealing with a hamstring injury over the course of OTAs, showed up early to rehabs. The 49ers put him on that PUP, physically unable to perform list. A lot of people who didn't know what they're talking about freaked out. The 49ers activated Ricky Pearsall from PUP just a couple practices in to training camp. So stuff like that might happen. We might see Brett Toth, who was working off on the side, the offensive lineman for the 49ers, on the PUP list to begin, but I would expect him to be fully healthy to begin actual training camp for the 49ers, especially once the pads come on. And then the guys who are going to be on PUP and won't practice at the very start will be Michael Williams for sure. We'll see where Nick Bosa is. He wants to be ready for the 49ers for the start of training camp, and that's a player who we haven't gotten a very firm update on in quite some time. So we'll be watching Bosa. We'll be watching Alfred Collins, who's coming off of shoulder surgery. I would expect him to be ready or very, very close to it by training camp. And Keon White, I'm going to go ahead and take the injury shade off of Keon White. Why is that? Because, well, we've seen some intense workout videos of Keon White where he looks fully healthy. Now, I know that's different than playing actual football, but, I mean, he was doing the uphill treadmill sprint just a few days ago. He got shot in the ankle right after the Super Bowl, the night after the Super Bowl, or the night of the Super Bowl, I guess. And he had surgery the very next day. There obviously was tremendous concern about Keon White's ankle when we heard that news. But the defensive end whom the 49ers acquired from the Patriots in a trade last year is looking to be on track to participate fully in training camp. So that, to me, is remarkable news across the board for the 49ers, where you could look at this and say, you know, a couple weeks in the training camp, they might have everybody back except for George Kittle and Michael Williams. Michael tore his ACL 6 weeks after Nick Bosa, so I would expect him to be a little bit longer. I mean, that is a healthy roster. Other teams probably wouldn't be dealing with as healthy of a situation as the 49ers if that does indeed come to fruition. So the title of this video, I didn't expect any of this 49ers news. No, I did not expect them to be lining up to be this healthy coming into training camp, especially George Kittle, because November was the initial date that the 49ers had put on that recovery, as told by Kyle Juszczyk this past weekend. And no, I did not anticipate a 49ers minority owner deciding to go up and buy a controlling stake of the Seattle Seahawks to become the Seattle Seahawks' new owner. Crazy, crazy news there. But what is great news for the entire NFL is that the Seattle Seahawks are valued in this sale at $9.6 billion. And the 49ers are a more valuable franchise than the Seattle Seahawks. So it is a mere formality at this point that the 49ers are a $10 billion NFL franchise. There just has to be a valuation, and that valuation will come when the 49ers do, or when Vinod Khosla does, as is required by the NFL, sell his 3.1% stake in San Francisco. That was purchased for about $263 million. I would anticipate that it's sold for well over $300 million. Anything over $310 million will be over a $10 billion valuation for San Francisco. And you know what? This league is trying to grow, and I think they're doing a good job at it. I mean, the 49ers are going to be playing in Australia. We might see Japan games in the future. We've seen South America games. Obviously, we see a ton of Europe games every year. Maybe at some point we see a European division. The media rights deals for the NFL have been off the charts profitable for this league. It just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's why teams who are not cash poor, teams who are cash rich, like the 49ers, they are definitely able to spend and spend and spend. The 49ers in most seasons under John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan. Almost every season, they've been top 4 in the NFL in spending. They are number 4 in cash spent this year as they're putting in a lot of money to make this as strong of a roster as possible. It is the 3rd youngest defense in the league, though. So they've renovated the defense. They've actually pulled back on defensive spending, but continued pouring money into the offensive side of the football. The linebacker position is obviously getting handsomely compensated on defense. I'm going to go through all of this in the San Francisco Standard over the course of the next couple days, and we'll do a video on the 49ers spending. But a lot of that money concentrated toward the offense, where they have the oldest unit in the league. Defense is the 3rd youngest. They're leading with experience on the offensive side of the ball. Obviously, Trent Williams, Mike Evans, surrounding the... I would also say that there is a burgeoning young core there for the 49ers on offense. You've got Brock Purdy. Ricky Pearsall needs to have a good year for this football team. So it's not just the old guys on offense, but the old guard is definitely leading the way on that side of the football. Adam Schefter said today on the Pat McAfee show that Aaron Donald told the Rams that he wanted to go into the facility to work out, to see how he felt, to see how his body reacted. Then we got a post from Davante Adams, and this also would be news related to the 49ers, by the way, that I didn't expect about a month or two ago. Now I expect it. Now I expect Aaron Donald at age 35 to come out of retirement. But this post that I'm about to put up on the screen from Davante Adams is yet more fuel to the fire of a potential Aaron Donald return to the NFL. Let's get that up there. I don't want to, that it's up there. It took the place of my 49ers depth chart. So this was today, not too long ago. And we saw TMZ had posted footage of Aaron Donald working out at the Rams facility. Somebody got that footage from over the fence. I think they're in Thousand Oaks now at the facility now. So somebody probably in a building, apartment building with a higher vantage point saw Aaron Donald, who hasn't been in the league since 2022. They got footage of him working out at the Rams facility. Now, LA's obviously picked up Myles Garrett via trade this offseason. I think he's still in his prime. I mean, last year was his best year. He set the NFL sacks record, 23 sacks on the season for Myles Garrett for the Cleveland Browns. Aaron Donald would not be in his prime if they got him, which would be good news for the rest of the league, including the 49ers. My question, though, Aaron Donald is an all-time great, right? I mean, we're talking about him as potentially one of the greatest defensive players ever at the time of his retirement in 2022, just past the age of 30. How much does he still have in the tank? Playing actual football is different than pumping out impressive sets with heavy dumbbells, which is what Aaron Donald has been doing over the course of the past few years while he's been retired. Guy is certified physical specimen. I respect the hell out of the workouts he's been posting ever since he retired, but I'm also a realist, and you do have to wonder how he would react back in an NFL uniform on an NFL field if he does indeed return. And that's why he himself wanted to go to the Rams facility and see how it felt. Technically, Aaron Donald probably, with his hand placement and just with his know-how, with his knowledge of offensive schemes, I'm sure he still has it. Physically, would he be able to last over the course of an entire season? I mean, we just saw it with Conor McGregor, the fight the other night. He'd been out for a longer period of time. He'd been out for 5 years. He was still working out over the course of that half decade, but the knee obviously did not hold up. And Conor McGregor, an all-time great in the fighting sphere, and Aaron Donald, an all-time great in the football sphere. Father Time does end up coming for everyone. So it'll be fascinating case study to see Aaron Donald back at age 35 after a few years off. If there's anybody who could do it and still play at a high level, I would say that Aaron Donald would be that person. The Rams, as Mike points out right now, would want to keep him fresh for the end of the year and the playoffs. I think it would be very similar if the Warriors picked up LeBron James, something that might happen this weekend. I think it's going to be similar for the 49ers with somebody like Mike Evans, who's 33 years old, a couple years younger than Aaron Donald. The 49ers have a stacked roster. The Rams have a stacked roster. Both of these teams are playing for the long haul of this 2026 season. Both of them want to peak at the right time. Both of them will recognize and should recognize that the NFL season is an absolute marathon. The 49ers played 3 straight years in 2021, 2022, and 2023, featuring 60 games. So 3 straight years of 20 games apiece, 60 games over those 3 years. That really wore San Francisco down to the point where 2024 was a 6-11 train wreck. There was some other drama thrown into all that before the season, especially with Brandon Ayuk. But ultimately, you do find your limit when it comes to physical and even mental exhaustion. So the key for any powerhouse team in the NFC West, I would say, has 3 of those, at least 3, unless Arizona can make it 4. I don't really bet that Arizona is going to be able to do that. But you've got the defending Super Bowl champs up in Seattle, recently purchased by the 49ers minority owner, Vinod Khosla. You've got the Los Angeles Rams, who added Myles Garrett, added Trent McDuffie, and now might even re-add Aaron Donald. And you've got the 49ers who have loaded up this offseason too. And, earlier this offseason, I said that the 49ers' biggest additions this offseason would be their returns to health. I was correct. Fred Warner, Nick Bosa, both in line to be back. Those are foundational pillar players that can transform a defense from number 21 in the league, though I think it could be a top 10 unit this year. I think they were top 5 before the injury of Nick Bosa last year. They beat the Seattle Seahawks convincingly on the road when Bosa was healthy. But they picked those guys up. Then they loaded up on the offensive side. They filled in their biggest weakness, which was the separation problems in the wide receiver room. Mike Evans joining the team now and Christian Kirk coming aboard. They used the draft pick on Dejon Stribling. I mean, exciting times for all of these teams in the NFC West, not just the defending Super Bowl champs, not just the team that might be getting Aaron Donald coming out of retirement, the 49ers as well. And then the league, we talk about money in the NFL. The league gets to see the Rams and the 49ers clash right from the get-go. Before all those week 1 games, before everything except for the Seattle game, they're going to be first on Wednesday night on the Pacific Coast, then Thursday evening, prime time, maybe the earliest local time NFL kickoff ever. 49ers and Rams will be kicking off in Melbourne in Australia at 10:45 a.m. local time. But what a start for the NFL season. I can't wait to see if the Rams are going to show up with Donald and Myles Garrett. Be a nice test for the 49ers. And the quarterback, Brock Purdy, who's the best QB in the NFL and the entire league at avoiding sacks. Best pressure to sack ratio last year. He immediately would probably have a few opportunities to get away from some sacks in week 1 against the Rams. With or without Aaron Donald, those opportunities are going to be on the table for Brock Purdy. Mike says the media will pre-crown the Rams. Yeah, but the media also is wrong about almost everything, whether it be sports or other issues. And the media is very simplistic. The media likes to partake in low horsepower exercises like quarterback rankings that don't even include the quarterback who's been the most productive QB in the league over the course of the past half decade. Yeah, that was today. That was ESPN, and Brock Purdy didn't even make their list. Just goes to show you how worthless some of this lazy reporting, it's not even reporting, it's just clickbait, is. The actual title will be determined on the field and will be determined with nuances that the basic media just does not report. And it happens every single season. Last year, the Packers traded for Micah Parsons, and everybody, the media, crowned Green Bay as title winners. And they were like, oh, look how good Green Bay looks over the course of the first 4 weeks of the season. Well, the season isn't 4 weeks long. Again, you've got to play close to 20 games to win a Super Bowl, sometimes even 20 if you don't get that first round bye. Well, no, 20. Because, to win a Super Bowl, regardless, you got to win 20. You play 17 in the regular season. If you get that first round bye, it's 18 of the divisional round, 19 of the championship game, 20 in the Super Bowl. These are long marathons that are impossible to firmly predict because depth is going to end up coming into massive consideration. And nobody knows at this point. Teams are going to be favored. Some teams are going to be underdogs. All I know is that the NFC West is going to be loaded, and we'll see how it goes from there. All I know is that we can judge the 49ers and we could judge their individual players based on what they actually do on the field. That's why I've been one of the few fair reporters when it comes to Brock Purdy, because I judge him based on his actual production instead of hypotheticals and guesses. And, I don't just say stuff to appear that I'm part of the crowd. I don't like to be a sheep, right? I like to actually look at the data, look at the tape, and then say, well, the 49ers have the best quarterback in the league at avoiding sacks, something that, makes people's jaws drop because they sit around and they just look at top 10 lists that are entirely subjective and entirely meant for people to look cool, to look like they're in the know. Well, you know nothing if that's what you're basing your analysis on. So long story short, the 2026 season is going to play out on the field. The 49ers have added quite a bit over the course of this offseason to try to ameliorate some of the weaknesses that were part of this team in 2026. I think that the biggest weakness for San Francisco came on offense and was their inability to separate. And I say this because obviously statistically they were league last in sacks on the defensive side of the ball. They struggled. They leaked oil on defense to close the season. But so much of what happened on defense came back down to the fact that they suffered catastrophic injuries on that side of the ball, right? They lost Nick Bosa in week 3 against the Cardinals. They had a top 5 pass rush win rate over the first 2+ weeks with Nick Bosa. They lost Fred Warner in week 6 in Tampa Bay. The defense, I think anybody with a brain could have seen that the defense was going to fall off a cliff after losing 2 massive foundational pillars, and the 49ers lost even more beyond that. So we knew that the 49ers defense last year was going to be a weakness after they lost their 2 best players. It was the offense, which had to carry more and lead the team last year, that still really, really struggled at receiver. And yes, there were injuries there too. I get it. Ricky Pearsall with the PCL injury that basically compromised 3/4 of his season. That thing never fully healed. But Brandon Ayuk and all that drama, him not playing for the 49ers last year, meant they didn't have an X. If you don't have a true X, they're tossing in a beat-up Jawan Jennings into X, even though he's a better F, big slot wide receiver for the 49ers, playing the X, a position that's not even his home position, with 5 or 6 broken ribs. I mean, no wonder the 49ers were not getting the spacing that they needed. They also had an injury at the quarterback position. Purdy missed half of the season. They had to get that receiver position in a better spot. And they did by adding Evans, by adding Kirk, by adding Dejon Stribling. And they should be in an even better spot if Jacob Cowing and Jordan Watkins take strides and remain healthy in 2026. That was Operation 1 for San Francisco this offseason. If the Warriors end up getting LeBron James, the proper analogy, I think, and it's going to be an awesome analogy. I made it on a video before, but I could say it right now since that decision may come this week. It's like Mike Evans going to the 49ers. It's somebody who is LeBron's in his 40s now, but definitely is past his peak physical prime, but is a future Hall of Famer who comes at a massive position of need, who you're going to rely on as a team with title aspirations. You're going to rely on him in a big way down the stretch later. You're going to want to make sure that he's fresh later. I'm sure if the Warriors get LeBron, there's going to be a ton of load management so that he's ready to go for the playoffs, so the Warriors can go old guys against the world. Steph, LeBron, Draymond, whoever else is on that basketball team, May into June to the NBA Finals. I'm sure they'll put all those chips into the middle of the table if they can, health permitting. So they're going to try to keep guys fresh and healthy. The 49ers, I look at it in a similar way this year. Of course, the defense is young, and the defense is one of those units that I think should blossom if they play their cards right and the right guys stay healthy over the course of the year, given the talent and the foundational pillars that they have. But it's the offensive pieces like Mike Evans, like Trent Williams, like Christian McCaffrey, like George Kittle, that you're going to need firing on all cylinders down the stretch if this team is going to have the number one offense in the league when it matters. That's the formula for the 49ers. So at some level, everybody's going to rely on age staying healthy in this league. You don't win a Super Bowl without foundational pillars. The 2020 Bucks won with an old Tom Brady. The Rams this year, if they pick up Aaron Donald, they're going to be relying on Aaron Donald to still be firing late in the season at age 35. The Rams already have a 31-year-old Myles Garrett that you're going to be counting on to be playing good football down the stretch. For the 49ers, it's Trent Williams, it's Mike Evans, it's George Kittle, Fred Warner. I mean, these guys didn't stay healthy last year, but the 49ers will have to get guys on the wrong side of 30 playing good football down the stretch to help lead some of these younger players, some of the rookies, some of the second-year guys. I mean, we started this entire video with this video, which is worth playing again. Upton Stout. He is, I don't say he's a foundational pillar of the 49ers, but this is a really important piece. Mike brought up an interesting question. Are we sure that Raheem Morris doesn't hybridize this defensive backfield to the point where we see some safety action for Upton Stout? Matchup safety action. Remember Jimmy Ward would come down from a safety position and play man-to-man in the slot? And that was extremely, extremely effective for the 49ers defense in 2019. In fact, that's how they stonewalled the Rams, who had gone to the Super Bowl the year prior. Still remember the Week 6 game at the Coliseum where Cooper Kupp had like only 2 catches. It was because Jimmy Ward was matching up on him coming down from a safety position. There's a chance that Upton Stout, if the 49ers want to keep him on the field for more than 70% of the snaps, and he was on there about 70% of the time last year because he's the third cornerback, what if he plays a matchup safety position to where if you're in a nickel defense, he is your nickel back, just like last year, 70% of the time, and you bring in another safety to play the 2 standard safety spots. But in base packages, what if you don't want to take Upton Stout off the field? You've got Renardo Green and Diamante Lenore on the edges. What if you want to keep Upton Stout on the football field? He stays there as a safety. What if that's the 49ers plan this year? I think it's an intriguing thought. I think I'm going to give credit to Mike. He was talking about it when we were texting over the course of this weekend. I wouldn't hate it. And when I watch Upton Stout work out, you got to get excited. I mean, the guy was a great pass rusher last year. His cover skills developed over the course of the season. The Upton Stout that we saw wild card weekend, right? Even the Seattle game, he was the 49ers' best player in that Seattle game. But he was the best defender, I thought, against Philadelphia in the wild card round. Compare that Upton Stout with Week 1 Upton Stout in the opener at Seattle, who committed that very, very costly 4th down penalty in the red zone. I don't think Seattle scored a touchdown in that game if Upton Stout doesn't commit that holding penalty against Cooper Kupp. That's Week 1, right? So Stout was, there was a work in progress going on there for Upton Stout in Week 1. Compare what we saw then to what we saw late in the year, night and day. The guy blossomed for the 49ers right in front of their eyes over the course of the 2026 season. Now he's entering year 2, and I wouldn't blame him if they said, hey, you know what? Safety, I mean, the position's a little sketchy. Let's go back to the roster. Let's see the options at safety for the 49ers. They have added in free agency, but it was in bargain bin free agency for San Francisco. They didn't add a bigger name at safety. Jesse Bates might be out there of the Falcons before the trade deadline, played for Morris in the past, but here's safety. Malik is going to be one of the starters for the 49ers, Malik Mustafa, right? Then it's a question of, does Jair Brown win that second spot? Does Marquise Siegel win that second spot? Or do the 49ers play Upton Stout at a safety spot, with the caveat being that he's at nickelback 70% of the time, safety 30% of the time? Raheem Morris, if he's truly amorphous with this secondary, and there's a new DB coach coming in as well, Jerry Gray, but if he's truly amorphous, it's going to be hard to tell the difference between who's playing safety and who's playing nickel. Because you can win a lot of matchups schematically before the snap if you can confuse offenses with a defense that's as adaptable as offenses are adaptable and versatile with how they're deploying their weapons. So, and Nate Hobbs is here for the same reason for the 49ers, by the way. That's a free agent pickup. That's somebody who has played outside and inside cornerback. He signed a big deal with Green Bay just over a year ago to play corner, but it turns out that he's a better inside corner than an outside corner. I think Jack Jones, who's the other free agent pickup at cornerback, he's going to be more of an outside guy for the 49ers. And he'll compete with Renardo. Renardo's the favorite there. I get that. But Nate Hobbs, I think they're looking at him as a slot guy. Maybe even as the big slot answer for the 49ers. The big slot for San Francisco last year was a safety. It was Jair Brown at first when he was the third safety, and then it was Jason Pinnock coming in. They might still have to run a big slot if they feel that Upton Stout is a little too small to handle the 13 personnel and the bigger, receivers in the slot. Jawan Jennings is going to be an opponent this year when the 49ers play the Minnesota Vikings in Mexico City. So, in the scenario that I'm talking about, if you don't want to take Upton Stout off the field, he could still play safety where he's less of a matchup guy. And then somebody like Nate Hobbs can come in and play that big nickel position. He's a bigger corner, but he's better on the inside than outside. I am just illustrating different variations that the 49ers can throw out there that could make this defense much better, much more interesting, and much more suited to the style of coordinating that I think that we will see from Raheem Morris. The guy has coached in the Tampa style systems. That's where he cut his teeth. He has been with the Rams, which is not a Tampa style system. That's a Fangio style system that the Rams are running when Raheem Morris was the defensive coordinator there. He, I think, has shown tremendous embrace of adaptability on the back end, which is, potentially something that he got from Brandon Staley's setup in LA. Staley was the defensive coordinator in 2020. Morris took over in 2021. Speaking of Aaron Donald, Donald and the Rams won a ring with Raheem Morris as their defensive coordinator in 2021. But you had Jalen Ramsey playing all over the formation. He was playing slot. He was playing outside. They could even do that with Deommodore Lenoir under Brandon Staley. Mike points out that not under Brandon Staley. I don't want to freak you guys out. Under Raheem Morris. Mike has a video here of Raheem Morris that we might as well play since we are talking about the 49ers' new defensive coordinator, where he talks about roles over starters at safety. And I don't even remember this video, but I think it corroborates exactly what I'm saying right now.
That's the most important thing. I think it's spots, right? Nobody ever gets comfortable in the National Football League. Coaches, players, and nobody. I think you want to go out there and have high-level competition across the board. I think it's less about, starting spots for coaches. It's more about roles and what kind of roles can people do to help you win. And I think people finding their roles, whether you call Stout a starter or not, he's a starter. Being that nickel role that he stepped into last year and played at a very high level, I think those things matter. Whether you talk about the safeties and how they're going to play and what their role is going to be, I think you want those guys to go out there and compete at a very high level and give you everything that they can. And they've shown a lot of good things, despite what might have been said about these guys in the past. And I'm really excited to watch those guys play.
So that was Raheem Morris asked about the safeties, and the only player that he mentioned specifically was Upton Stout. That makes you think a little bit. That makes me think a lot. And then, so not only does he only mention Upton Stout, who technically wasn't a safety last year, he also says roles are the way that we need to think about this instead of two safeties. What role is a certain player going to play? Again, Upton Stout as a nickel back, because you run two corners, two safeties, three linebackers, four down linemen in a base defense. As a nickel back, Upton Stout will technically only see the field 70% of the time. You're nickel about 70% of the time. Last year, the 49ers ran it straight up. Whenever he was healthy, he was the nickel. So about 30% of the time, he wasn't on the field. Upton Stout, at the end of the year, was one of the 49ers' best defenders. I would say he was their best defender because they didn't have Bosa or Fred Warner out there at the end of the year. And I thought that he actually outplayed Deommodore Lenoir at the very end, especially in the final couple games. So say that you don't want him on the bench 30% of the time. Say that you're a little thin at safety. maybe the plan there is for Upton Stout to take 30% of his snaps in a slightly different role. Definitely a very different role than standing on the sideline, but in a different role than the 70% of the slot cornerback snaps that the 49ers have in place. It's just my thought. And then, you talk about different roles, and I put up the depth chart. Nate Hobbs, Jack Jones. They've got some veteran depth in that defensive backfield that they didn't have last year. The Lone Wolf says that the defense is going to be faster than last year. Yes, that's a for sure. The pass rush needs to be better. I think that's almost certain as well. They just had too many injuries. Bosa is the straw that stirs the pass rushing drink. You definitely need him bad. Also, safeties should look better if the pass rush is better. That should be very fundamental football knowledge. Anthony, I appreciate your compliment of my beard. We may just have to keep it throughout this season since my wife agrees with you. What do I think of George Kittle, pup or no pup? I think he's going to almost certainly start on pup, but he's well ahead of schedule. So even if he starts training camp on pup, he still has a chance to be back for week 1. You can activate him at any time of training camp of the preseason. Then you've got to make a decision once you cut down the roster. If you keep him on pup, once you cut down the roster, he has to miss at least the first 4 games. So that's when the real decision might come for the 49ers and George Kittle. Is this Juice's last year with the 49ers? I certainly hope not. I mean, as long as Kyle Juszczyk wants to play, he's such an effective player and such an important part of the 49ers offense at such a bargain price because he's being paid on the fullback scale. They're going to keep on re-signing him. As long as he's capable of playing and he still is playing at a high level, I think they continue extending Kyle Juszczyk. That being said, he's been in the league since 2013. So Kyle's no spring chicken, and you wonder at what point does he decide to call it quits? Little Savannah Lombardi is doing very well. I think she's up to over 12 pounds. She remains at 100th percentile height. So she is still breaking the relative athletic score. Currently upstairs, doing great. I'm actually watching her for the next couple hours tonight. So after this show is done, then I'm going to go hang out with her. I think we're going to go out to dinner. I take her to like pretty fancy places. I'm not going to say where, but they're places with really good burgers in town. Okay. And I'm pretty sure one of them was the first time they had ever seen anybody take a baby in there. And she is always on her very best behavior. She just kind of sleeps or looks at me in the little stroller, the Nuna stroller, which is awesome. It like collapses. They should pay me for this, but it's fun. So whenever I have a chance to go hit the town, help mom out a little bit, then we go get a really good burger. She can't eat any of it yet, but maybe in a couple years she can come with me for that part too. People are always really nice to you too when you bring in a baby. Like everybody wants to help you, and she's gonna take her first flight coming up in a week. That'll be fun. Heading out to California. Looking forward to that. Who's going to get the 49ers a return touchdown? You need somebody to step up big as a kick return specialist. It's been since 2018, Richie James against the Seahawks, where Sebastian Janikowski made it wasn't an attempt. Sebastian Janikowski made a business decision to not tackle Richie James. That was the last time the 49ers had a kick return TD. Last year, Sky Moore looked like he would have one, but he ran out of gas in Arizona. So I don't know who's going to get the 49ers a return. I thought Isaac Guerendo might get him one, but Isaac Guerendo slipped down the depth chart, even lost his kick return job last year. They haven't had a punt return for a touchdown since Ted Ginn Jr. in the 2011 season opener against the Seattle Seahawks, which was Jim Harbaugh's first game as the 49ers coach, against Pete Carroll's Seahawks. It was Carroll's second year with Seattle. Harbaugh's first year with San Francisco. 49ers beat the Hawks at the stick, and Ted Ginn Jr. returned both a kick and a punt for a touchdown in that game. I could put together a list of San Francisco food places. The crazy thing about that, though, is they change so often. Every big city is kind of like that. I have a buddy who lived in Tokyo 10, 15 years ago, tried to make a Tokyo list for one of his friends, and then his friend went and he said, well, all the places are closed. So there's a lot of turnover. But yeah, for this season, I can make you one, especially if you're coming out to a 49ers game here in 2026. I don't remember this. This is cool. Jerry Gray used to play the 49ers twice a year. He tried to prevent Montana from getting the ball to Rice. Gray had a nice NFL career. His last year, I'm too young to remember that, by the way, but Jerry Gray's last year was John Lynch's rookie year, and they were in the same DB room in Tampa Bay. Pretty cool, right? So a little bit of overlap there for the 49ers and their new DB coach, Jerry Gray. I think I'm going to keep the beard indefinitely. Everybody seems to like it. Everybody's like, don't shave it. So it's comfortable. It doesn't bother me. I've shortened it a little bit. I might shorten it even a little bit more for training camp just because it's hot, right? You want to be as cool as possible. But I mean, if you're voting for the beard, give me a thumbs up in the comment section and we'll go from there. Yeah, the Boys Deli is a good spot for sure. Deli Board, the Boys Deli. Order it Lombardi style from Deli Board. That is avocado added on. For a day, they were doing free avocado. Too bad. But that was if you ordered it Lombardi style. That was only a one-day promotion. Just go to Deli Board. It isn't not a cheap sandwich, but it's worth it. It's a life-changing sandwich. Go to the Boys Deli. They're awesome. Go see Elias at Les Sandwich on Columbus. Also really, really good. I mean, there's a lot of spots, and you could watch my sandwich video. All those places are still open. The M Stop in Balboa Park. Go see Sal at the M Stop. That one is really cool. He's a big 49ers fan. There are a lot of options across the entire city. It's the best sandwich city in the world. So you said if the 49ers start losing, you're going to blame the beard. I had the beard in 2022, the whole season, and they had a good year. That was the year where they lost to Philadelphia in the NFC Championship game. But the 49ers had a good year. I had the beard, so I wouldn't read too far into it. But people are giving the thumbs up for the beard. I might as well keep it around for the time being. You know what Lombardi actually means? It means the long-bearded ones. So I don't know if I can be a Lombardi, one of the long-bearded ones, and not have a beard. I think it's essentially mandatory. You want me to get a mohawk with the beard? I don't know about that, guys. That'd be a little much. But that's kind of funny. We're going to go 49 minutes with this show. And listen, the Seahawks have just sold to a minority owner of the 49ers who's going to have to divest from the 49ers. Great news for all the teams around the league. 49ers will get even richer with this. I think they're going to be the first NFL team valued at $10 billion, which is crazy. 49ers look very, very healthy, relatively speaking, coming into training camp. We just went over all of that. And Upton Stout looks like he's truly ready to play some good football for the 49ers. I got to go hang out with my daughter. We're going to go out to dinner. So everybody, thanks for watching. Hit that subscribe button. We're just getting cooking here. 49ers Rookies report on Saturday.